the smell of my mom's slow-cooked pot roast drifted through the dining room that Sunday evening in April, thick and comforting in the way childhood memories often are. But even the warmth of that familiar scent couldn't soften the tension that trailed behind me every time I stepped into a family gathering. At 30, I had learned to brace myself the same way one braces for a storm they know was coming. Predictable, familiar, still painful. "So, Emily," Ryan began, carving into his roast with a kind of practiced precision that always seemed designed to remind people of his importance. "Still working at that shipping warehouse over on South Tryon?" The tone, that effortless blend of pity and superiority, was his signature. He'd worn it proudly since college. "Yes," I said, keeping my voice even. "Carolina Medical Distribution, shipping and supply." "Medical distribution," he repeated slowly, exchanging a pointed look with our parents. "Well, I suppose that's about as close to medicine as you'll ever get, right?" Dad let out a low chuckle, the kind that made the knot in my stomach tighten by reflex. "At least she's somewhere in the medical field," he added lightly, "even if it's just moving boxes and packing orders." I forced a small smile, my expression smooth and practiced. After all, these conversations had followed the same pattern for 6 straight years, ever since I'd quietly withdrawn from my biomedical sciences program at UNC Charlotte. They had formed their own version of the story, one that absolved them from needing to understand me. In their minds, I had failed my advanced coursework, dropped out because I couldn't handle the pressure, accepted my intellectual limitations, and settled for something more realistic. They didn't know that an acceptance letter from Johns Hopkins School of Medicine had arrived just 6 weeks later. They didn't know I finished an accelerated MD program in 3.5 years instead of 4. They didn't know about the brutal cardiothoracic residency that had nearly broken me, nor the fellowship in Charlotte that led to my current position. They didn't know I was Dr. Emily Carter, one of the youngest cardiothoracic surgeons in the state. Ryan cut into his meat again with a smirk. "You know what I think? You finally realize medicine requires real intelligence. Not everyone can handle lives in their hands." Mom reached across the table and laid her hand over mine with a soft pat, a gesture meant to be comforting, but delivered with that gentle condescension she'd perfected over the years. "There's absolutely no shame in finding work that suits your abilities, sweetie. The warehouse seems steady, and that's what matters." "And hey," Ryan added, grin widening, "failed pre-med students make pretty decent supply workers. At least some of the terminology still makes sense to you." I set my fork down and met his eyes directly. "You're right. I do understand the terminology." Dad's eyes lit up, proud of what he believed was my maturity. "See, that's what we like to hear. Accepting reality, making the best of it." Ryan leaned back in his chair, full of self-satisfaction. "Remember when you talked about becoming a surgeon?" he asked, laughing. "God, that used to kill me. You would have fainted at the first drop of blood." "Ryan," Mom chided softly, though she was smiling, "don't tease your sister like that. She's found her place." "I'm not teasing, Mom. I'm proud of her. She finally stopped chasing something impossible." I nodded slowly. "You're right about one thing. The pressure is intense." "Exactly," his voice brightened with victory. "That's what I keep telling people. You have to have nerves of steel. Surgeons barely sleep. They get emergency calls at 2 a.m. They have to make split-second decisions that determine whether someone lives or dies. It's just not for everyone." "The hours can be challenging," I agreed softly. Dad jumped back in. "And the schooling? Insane. Years and years just to start working. Some of the smartest people I know struggled. No shame in admitting when something is beyond your capabilities." "And the malpractice insurance," Ryan continued, riding the wave of his own expertise. "Do you know how much a cardiothoracic surgeon pays? It's outrageous. Hundreds of thousands just to protect themselves when something goes wrong." I took a sip of water, listening to his voice shift into the lecturing tone he adopted ever since he completed his MBA. His job at the regional credit union had given him just enough success to inflate his ego, though he'd never climbed as high as he once assumed he would. "And don't forget how brutal residency is," Mom added. 36-hour shifts, getting yelled at by attendings. "You were always so sensitive, Emily. That environment would have eaten you alive." "Probably for the best that you figured that out early," Ryan said, not unkindly. "Better to quit before you crashed and burned." I finished the last bite of my pot roast and set down my silverware gently. "You're all very thoughtful to be so concerned about the challenges of medical training." They just want you to be happy, Dad answered with genuine warmth under the condescension. Sometimes the best way to help the people we love is to make sure they see reality clearly. Ryan raised his beer bottle with a small smile of his own. To Emily, for finally finding a job that fits her abilities. No more pretending to be something she's not. Mom and Dad joined in on the toast. All three smiling. All three so certain. I lifted my water glass with a small smile of my own. To finding where you belong. After dinner, Ryan helped me clear the table while Mom and Dad argued in the living room about what to watch next. As we loaded the dishwasher, Ryan shifted into a more serious tone. You know, Em, I've been thinking, you're 30 now. You finally accepted reality about your career. Maybe it's time to focus on other things. Like what? I asked. Like dating, marriage, kids, he said with a proud older brother nod. Normal life. You missed out on a lot trying to chase that doctor fantasy. I leaned against the counter. You think I should focus on finding a husband? I think you should focus on building a realistic life, he said. A stable one. Then he smiled like he was about to deliver the answer to every problem in my life. And I actually know a guy who'd be perfect for you. Oh, I asked. Mike Thompson, he said proudly. Does construction, honest job, steady income. And the best part, no unrealistic expectations. He won't expect you to be some high-powered career woman. Unrealistic expectations, I repeated. You know what I mean, he said. He'd appreciate someone grounded, someone who understands the value of simple, honest work. You'd fit that perfectly. I smiled gently. I'll think about it. Good, he clapped my shoulder again, as if he had saved me. That night I drove home to my small apartment on the other side of Charlotte, where a stack of medical research journals sat waiting on my coffee table, and a surgical planning meeting awaited me at 7 a.m. sharp the next morning. They had no idea, and I had no intention of correcting them. Not yet. No more disappointment when plans fell apart, no more ambitious dreams to explain, no more exams to fail, no more standards to meet. Just simple, honest living with someone who accepted me as I was. That, in Ryan's mind, was the happily ever after he'd finally crafted for me. He shut the dishwasher door with a satisfied click and straightened up, clearly pleased with himself for having this heart-to-heart with his wayward younger sister. Seriously, Em, he said, wiping his hands on a dish towel, you deserve a guy like Mike. He's steady. He's not going to judge you for where you're at. He's not going to push you to be something you're not. Something I'm not, I repeated softly. You know what I mean, he insisted. He's not expecting some high-powered executive or surgeon. He wants a sweet, down-to-earth woman who appreciates the simple things, someone who understands real work. You'd fit that perfectly. I looked at him for a moment and then smiled, not because I agreed, but because I understood exactly how completely he believed what he was saying. Ryan had built his entire identity around being the successful one, the one who got it right. I'll think about it, I said. Good, he clapped my shoulder again. Good, he grinned, clapping my shoulder again. I'll talk to Megan about setting something up. Maybe dinner next weekend, something casual, no pressure. We joined our parents in the living room where the eternal remote control battle had been resolved in favor of Dad's latest obsession, a documentary on aircraft carriers during the Cold War. I settled into the corner of the couch, half listening as the narrator droned on about flight decks and catapults as Ryan launched into his new favorite topic, fixing my love life. Emily's finally ready to start settling down, he announced like he just negotiated a major merger. I'm going to introduce her to Mike Thompson. Guy's solid, good with his hands, no delusions. Oh, that's wonderful, Mom said, folding her hands together in delighted relief. I was starting to worry you'd never take dating seriously, Emily. You always seem so focused on those big dreams. Dad nodded approvingly. Thompson's a good name. Sounds like a family that's been around a while. Construction is honest work. Nothing wrong with a man who comes home with a little sweat on his shirt. And the best part, Ryan added, clearly enjoying himself. Mike knows Emily works at the warehouse, and he's totally fine with that. He doesn't expect her to become some big-shot career woman. No pretending, no pressure. I listened to as they laid out the blueprint for my future with Mike Thompson, a man I'd never met, but who apparently had the rare and admirable quality of not expecting too much from me. They spoke with the secure confidence of people who believed they'd finally solved the problem of my life. I found myself almost fond of that certainty. The night wound down with more speculation about Mike's virtues, his steady job, his supposed kindness, his preference for his simple living. I hugged each of them goodbye, promised to give it serious thought, and walked out into the cool spring night, the sky over Charlotte clear and quiet. Ryan walked me to my car, still full of big brother advice. "Just keep an open mind, okay?" he said as I unlocked the driver's side door. "You spent so many years trying to be something you're not that you forgot how to just be yourself. Mike will remind you there's nothing wrong with being ordinary." "Ordinary?" I repeated. He smiled, satisfied. "Exactly. Ordinary isn't a failure, it's reality." I thanked him for his concern, slid into my car, and drove back to my apartment on the other side of town, where a laptop full of surgical notes and a stack of cardiology journals waited on my coffee table, along with a half-finished presentation for Monday morning's department meeting at Carolina Regional Medical Center. 3 months seemed like a reasonable amount of time, long enough for my family to fully settle into their version of my life, long enough for them to picture me carefully stacking boxes in a warehouse and timidly preparing for blind dates with construction workers, long enough for the story to harden into certainty. 3 months and 2 days later, I was in my office at the hospital reviewing patient charts before afternoon rounds when my pager went off with a code that made my stomach drop. Quietest, incoming ambulance. Patient, Ryan Carter, age 33. For a split second, I thought I'd misread it. Then my phone rang. I answered on the first vibration. "Emily?" Megan's voice was high and ragged with panic. "Emily, oh my God, something's wrong with Ryan. He just collapsed at work. They said it's his heart. They're taking him to Carolina Regional. Can you meet us there? I don't know what to do." "I'm already here," I said, pushing back my chair and heading for the door. My voice slipped automatically into the calm cadence I reserved for critical moments. "What exactly did the paramedics tell you?" "They said it might be a heart attack, but he's only 33. They said they're doing CPR in the ambulance. Emily, how can this be happening?" "I'm going down to the emergency department now. I'm crossing the skywalk toward the main hospital building, my ID badge swinging against my chest. I'll find out what's going on. Come straight to the ER entrance. Ask for me or for Dr. Emily Carter. They'll bring you back as soon as they can." I stepped off the elevator into organized chaos. The ambulance bay door slid open just as I arrived. The EMT crew rushed in with a stretcher, the familiar outline of a body lying motionless on it, chest exposed, compressions in progress, monitors beeping, the bag valve mask squeezing with each breath. For a moment, all I could see was movement, paramedics calling out vitals, nurses clearing the way, the trauma team assembling. Then I saw his face. Ryan. Pale. Still. A stranger's oxygen mask over the brother who had mocked me over pot roast 3 months earlier. "Megan, you can't go back there," a nurse was saying somewhere behind me. "You have to let the team work." "But that's my husband," she cried. "Please, just tell me if he's breathing, please." "She's with me," I said, turning just enough for the nurse to see my badge and coat. "I'm Dr. Carter." Recognition sparked in the nurse's eyes. "Yes, Dr. Carter, trauma bay 2. We moved. Inside the trauma bay, the scene unfolded like a familiar, terrible ballet. Voices calling out vital signs. VFib. Charging. Clear. Shock delivered. Resume compressions. Get a line in. Push epi. I stood just outside the immediate crush of bodies, watching the monitors, listening to the rhythm of the commands. My brain translated the data automatically. Acute anterior wall myocardial infarction. Probable complete occlusion of the left anterior descending artery. Cardiogenic shock. Life hanging by a thread. "Dr. Carter." I turned to see Dr. Patel, the attending in the emergency department, at my elbow. His eyes were somber. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "We're doing everything we can. We've gotten him out of arrhythmia twice, but his rhythm is unstable. He's going to need immediate catheterization at minimum, and honestly, I don't like what I'm seeing on the echo. We're probably headed for emergency bypass if we can stabilize him long enough." "Cath lab status?" I asked. "On standby, but this may be beyond interventional. He's young, but the damage is significant. His EF is already down to around 15%. Megan grabbed my arm then, her fingers digging into my sleeve. "Emily, what are they saying? Is he going to die? Why won't anyone tell me what's happening?" I looked at her. This woman, who'd spent the last few months helping Ryan brainstorm ways to rescue my disappointing life. Her mascara was streaked, her eyes wide with terror. "Right now," I said gently, "Ryan has had a serious heart attack. They're working to keep his heart beating and his blood circulating. He's going to need surgery." "Surgery?" she echoed, her voice breaking. What kind of surgery? Is it dangerous? Any heart surgery is serious, but in his case, it's also necessary. Dr. Patel glanced between us, clearly wrestling with how much to say. We're looking at emergency coronary bypass, but I need to be honest, this is a critical situation. Timing is everything. The sooner we get him to the OR, the better his chances are. Then where's the surgeon? Megan demanded, her fear hardening into desperation. Why aren't they here yet? Why is everyone just talking? Dr. Patel's eyes flicked to me again, a question hanging unspoken between us. Dr. Carter, he said carefully, given the situation, do you want to be involved in the treatment decisions here? Dr. Carter? Megan's voice jumped an octave. She stared at him, then at me. Why is he calling you that? Around us, the noise of the trauma base seemed to recede slightly. The initial frantic energy had settled into a focused, controlled urgency. Ryan was still critical, but stable enough for the moment to buy a few precious minutes. Out in the hallway, I could hear two more familiar voices, my parents, raised in alarm as they argued with staff about why they weren't being allowed into the trauma area. I took a slow breath, feeling the weight of all the years and all the lies by omission pressing against this single moment. And then I turned fully to Megan, still gripping my arm, eyes searching my face like it held the last solid thing in her world. And because, I said quietly, there are some things I never told you. Dr. Carter, Dr. Patel said again, soft, careful, deliberate. Given the situation, would you like to take the lead on the treatment decisions here? Dr. Carter, Megan's voice repeated, her voice cracking. Emily, why is he calling you that? The trauma bay buzzed around us, monitors beeping, nurses moving in rapid precision, the cardiac crash cart humming beside the bed. It was chaos wrapped in expertise, a battlefield I knew intimately. Emily, I heard Mom's voice from the hallway, high and trembling. Please, someone tell us what's happening to our son. Security was gently holding my parents back, doing their best to enforce protocol, while my mother's voice grew sharper, my father's deeper and more demanding. They didn't understand that chaos like this required order. They didn't understand a lot of things. I looked at Megan, my sister-in-law who had spent months helping Ryan fix my life, and took both of her hands in mine. Megan, I said quietly, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Her breathing was sharp, uneven. Ryan is going to need emergency heart surgery, I continued, and he's going to need the most experienced cardiac surgeon available. Then get them, please, just get the best surgeon you have. Money doesn't matter, insurance doesn't matter, just save him. The most experienced cardiac surgeon available, I said gently, is me. She blinked once, then twice. Her whole face seemed to freeze, like her mind simply refused to rearrange the puzzle pieces. I don't understand, she whispered. I'm Dr. Emily Carter, I said softly, Chief of Cardiothoracic Surgery at Carolina Regional Medical Center. I've been a cardiac surgeon for 5 years, and right now, Ryan needs me more than he has ever needed anything. Her mouth opened, then closed again, her voice caught somewhere between disbelief and shock. But you work at the warehouse, she sputtered, her entire understanding of my existence unraveling in real time. I own Carolina Medical Distribution, I said, still keeping my tone gentle. It's one of the largest medical device distributors in the Southeast. We supply this hospital, and about 10 others, with surgical equipment. Before she could respond, Dr. Patel stepped closer. Dr. Carter, he said, urgency returning to his voice. We need to move. His rhythm is deteriorating again. I squeezed Megan's hands once more and stepped back. I need to scrub in, I told her. The surgery could take 4 to 6 hours, depending on what we find once we open his chest. Dr. Patel and my team will keep you updated. She grabs my arm, desperation flooding her eyes. Emily, wait. Are you really going to operate on him? I met her gaze without flinching. I've performed over 800 cardiac surgeries, I said. Your husband is going to receive the best care possible. That's a promise. Her lips trembled. But Ryan said, I know what Ryan said. I interrupted softly. Right now, none of that matters. What matters is that his left anterior descending artery is completely blocked. His heart muscle is dying, and I have about 20 minutes to save it. She nodded numbly, and I turned toward the surgical wing. As I walked down the hallway, I heard my parents' voices growing louder, fearful, demanding, confused. A nurse stopped me at the station. Dr. Carter, she said, your family is asking for information. I picked up the phone. This is Dr. Carter. I said. "Please escort the Carter family to the cardiac surgery waiting area. Tell them the patient is being prepped for emergency bypass surgery. The chief of cardiac surgery is performing the operation." "Yes, doctor. Should we tell them?" "Just tell them I'm handling it personally." I hung up. I continued toward the surgical suite, and every step felt like walking deeper into a version of myself my family had never known. Inside, the lights were bright, the air cool and sterile. My team was already preparing the room, checking instruments, calibrating monitors, draping the surgical table. The controlled rhythm of the OR never failed to steady my pulse. As I scrubbed in, the sound of running water mingled with the distant beeping of machines. "Dr. Carter," said Sarah Kim, my lead nurse, and someone who knew me well. "We heard it's your brother. Are you sure you want to take this case? Dr. Patterson is available." "Thank you," I said, "but no, this is where I need to be." She gave a small nod. "Okay then, let's save him." I stepped into the OR. Ryan lay still under the surgical drapes, his chest prepped, the ventilator breathing for him, the heart-lung machine humming quietly beside the table. A life that had mocked me, belittled me, misunderstood me, and yet still mattered deeply to me, now lay entirely in my hands. "Scalpel," I said, and the surgery began. 4.5 hours later, I emerged from the OR exhausted but steady, my surgical cap in my hand, my scrubs damp with sweat. My family stood in the waiting area, Mom pacing, Dad gripping the back of a chair, Megan slumped forward with red-rimmed eyes. They all turned as I entered. "Emily," Mom whispered, "the nurse said you were—" "Ryan came through surgery beautifully. We performed a triple bypass. Blood flow has been fully restored. He's stable. His prognosis is very good." Silence. Disbelieving, stunned silence. Dad stared at me as if seeing me for the first time in his entire life. You operated on him?" he asked slowly. "I did." "You're really a doctor?" "I am," I said with a small nod. "Chief of cardiothoracic surgery, actually. For 3 years now." Mom's hand went to her mouth. Megan's eyes filled again. Dad stepped closer, shaking his head slightly, not in denial, but in awe. "We had no idea. None." "I thought you were working at a warehouse," I said gently, "and I let you think that." Mom reached toward me, but hesitated, her hand trembling midair. "Honey, why didn't you tell us? Why did you let us think all those things?" I took a breath. "Because what you believed didn't change what was true," I softly said. "And sometimes it was easier to let you believe your version than to fight it." Dad's voice cracked. "We said such hurtful things. You treated me like someone you cared about, but didn't understand. That's not the worst thing a family can do." Later that night, as Ryan slowly came out of sedation in the cardiac ICU, he blinked up at us, groggy, confused, fragile. His first words were barely audible. Did they get the best surgeon?" he mumbled. Megan took his hand and glanced at me. "They got the chief," she said softly. Ryan's eyes found me. Confusion, recognition, shock. A lifetime of assumptions collapsing inside a single heartbeat. "Emily," he whispered, You did the surgery?" "I did. And you're going to be okay. But we'll talk later about lifestyle changes." He closed his eyes, taking in the truth. "I'm sorry," he breathed. "For everything I said. About you not being smart enough. About medicine being too much. About you being a failure. You believe what you believed based on what you knew." "But I was wrong," he said, tears gathering at the corners of his eyes. "About everything." "You weren't wrong about everything," I replied gently. "The pressure, the hours, the weight of making life and death decisions. You were right. It's not for everyone." He managed a weak smile. "But it was for you." It was. In the weeks that followed, Ryan recovered, slowly, gratefully, differently. My parents began introducing me as their daughter, the doctor. Megan asked thoughtful questions instead of making assumptions. Ryan looked at me with a mixture of pride and humility that I had never seen on him before. And I continued doing what I'd always done, saving lives, running my business, showing up in the world as who I truly was, whether anyone recognized it or not. Because the truth about being underestimated is simple. It only matters if you need their estimation to know your worth. And I had stopped needing that a long time ago.